Welcome to another deep dive. And I have to say, I'm pretty excited about this one.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, because today we're basically looking at the science of why your inner couch potato is, like, actually a biological
It
genius.
does sound like a joke when you put it that way.
Right. I mean, I am all for finding a scientifically backed excuse to just, be lazy.
Well, I hate to burst your bubble right out of the gate, but we carry around this cultural narrative that success requires endless friction. We romanticize the grind.
Oh, totally. Rise and grind.
Exactly. We think if we aren't suffering at least a little bit, we aren't making real progress. But when you look at the underlying neurobiology, relying on sheer force of will is actually the least effective way to change your behavior.
Which brings us to today's source material. We are diving into James Clear's massive bestseller, Atomic Habits. But we're skipping the broad overviews. We are laser focused today on chapter 12.
Yeah, and that chapter introduces a really game-changing concept called the law of least effort.
Right. And our mission today is to unpack why that biological drive to be lazy is an advantage and how you can architect your environment to make your good habits completely effortless.
But just to ground this, before we get too carried away with the laziness thing,
I let me have my dream.
I know. But we are talking about lounging around, giving up on your goals. We're talking about um, caloric economics.
Caloric economics, okay.
Yeah, we're looking at human neurobiology and how the brain calculates the return on investment for every single action you take.
So let's start with that biology. Because before you can use the law of least effort to change your life, you really have to understand why your brain is just so hardwired to crave the easiest path possible.
Right, and we constantly judge ourselves for wanting to take the path of least resistance.
Yeah.
Right, we treat it as procrastination or, I don't know, a moral failing.
Oh, yeah, like a lack of discipline.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But biologically speaking, energy is incredibly precious. For the vast majority of human history, calories were, they were scarce.
Right, you had to hunt and forage.
Right. Physical survival required a tremendous amount of output just to secure your next meal.
Huh.
So the human brain evolved to be ruthlessly efficient.
Like an energy hoarding machine.
Yes. It is wired to conserve its reserves whenever possible.
So the law of least effort basically states that when you're faced with two similar options, people just naturally gravitate toward the one that requires the least amount of work.
That is the core mechanism. Out of all the possible actions you could take in any given moment, the one that actually happens is the one that delivers the most value for the least effort.
We're literally motivated to do what is easy.
We are. And this goes way beyond like why you might choose to order takeout instead of cooking a meal from scratch. It explains human history on a macro scale.
Yeah, the source material actually provides this wild historical lens for this, looking at the spread of agriculture thousands of years ago.
This is one of my favorite examples.
It's so cool. It points out that farming spread much faster across Europe and Asia, which, lie on an east-west axis, than it did in the Americas or Africa, which are oriented north to south.
And that geographical difference all comes down to friction.
Just friction.
Yeah. Think about it. If an early agricultural society moves east or west across the globe, the climate, the sunlight, the seasons, they all stay relatively consistent.
Oh, I see.
Right. So the crops they already know how to grow in one spot will likely thrive a few hundred miles down the road. Expanding a farm horizontally requires very little new cognitive or physical effort.
But moving north to south is an entirely different story.
Completely different. The climate changes drastically.
Which means our ancestors would have had to, figure out entirely new crops.
New crops, new tools for different soils, new growing seasons. They'd even have to adapt to new diseases. The caloric and cognitive cost of that adaptation is just massive.
Wow. So they basically made the biological calculation to just keep going sideways?
Exactly. They took the path of least resistance, and that invisible biological preference fundamentally shaped the development of early civilization.
Okay, but wait. Let me push back on this for a second.
Go for it.
If our brains are such brilliant energy savers, why do we build routines that make us absolutely miserable?
What do you mean?
Like, nobody wants to diet. Dieting is exhausting, yet people force themselves to do it. Waking up at 5 a.m. to go to the gym is brutal. That feels like the exact opposite of evolutionary laziness.
That is the perfect paradox to highlight. The way the text frames this is so insightful. It identifies the habit not as the goal, but as the obstacle to the goal.
The obstacle.
Yeah. Nobody actually wants the habit of a grueling 2-hour workout. What they want is the outcome to be fit. The workout is just the annoying obstacle standing in the way of that.
Okay, so the brain is constantly calculating the size of the obstacle.
Precisely. The friction is the space between you and your desired end state. If you want to be fit, and the method you choose involves, waking up in the dark, scraping ice off your windshield and driving across town,
Yeah, that's a massive obstacle.
right, your brain looks at that towering wall of friction and says, absolutely not, we are conserving energy today.
So laziness isn't a moral failing. It's a highly intelligent survival strategy.
Exactly. The brain is doing exactly what it was built to do, protect you from wasting precious energy.
Which means the problem isn't a lack of motivation. The problem is the size of the obstacle you've placed in front of yourself.
Which brings us to how we actually apply this. Since we know we're driven to take the path of least resistance, we have to stop fighting that instinct.
We have to lean into it.
Lean into it by using a process called addition by subtraction.
Addition by subtraction. You know, reading this, it really feels like trying to use a kinked garden hose.
That's a great analogy.
Like, if I'm holding a hose that's bent in the middle and only a trickle of water is coming out, I have two options. I could march over to the spigot and just crank the valve wide open.
Right, trying to force more water through the kink through sheer pressure,
Exactly.
which is the behavioral equivalent of relying on raw motivation. We try to force our way through a high-friction environment by hyping ourselves up, just, trying harder.
But the second option is so much simpler. I just walk over to the hose and unbend it. I subtract the friction, and the water just flows naturally, no extra pressure needed.
And that perfectly illustrates why the crank-up-the-valve approach fails over time. Willpower is a heavily depleting resource.
It really is.
If you force water through a bent hose, you increase the tension in the entire system. Eventually, the pressure builds up until the hose bursts, or you just get cognitively exhausted and give up. Removing the bend, subtracting the friction, is the only sustainable way to build a habit.
You can see this unbending the hose concept so clearly in the business world, too. The text talks about Japanese electronics manufacturers back in the 1970s.
Well, the lean production model.
Yeah, they basically overtook the global market. And while American factories were focused on sheer brute force, just asking workers to move faster and work harder, the Japanese factories did something else entirely.
They systematically audited their environments for friction.
Right. They aggressively eliminated wasted effort.
Yeah, if a worker had to twist their body and take 2 steps just to reach a specific tool, they'd redesign the whole workstation so the tool was resting perfectly at hand level.
It's so simple.
But so effective. They weren't asking the workers to generate more motivation. They simply removed the microscopic, annoying steps that drain cognitive and physical energy.
And the results were staggering. Their televisions became 5 times more reliable than American-made TVs. And it took American workers 3 times as long to assemble their sets.
They added quality and revenue simply by subtracting wasted effort. Addition by subtraction.
And we see that exact same principle driving the modern tech economy, don't we?
Oh, absolutely. Think about habit-forming products today. Meal delivery services, ride-sharing apps, dating apps.
They don't offer anything fundamentally new.
No, we've always had access to restaurant food and taxis. They succeed entirely because they eliminate tiny bits of friction from the user's life.
Yeah, you aren't paying a premium for the food itself. You're paying to not have to find your wallet or, read your credit card digits out loud over the phone and drive to pick it up.
The friction is gone.
There's another really compelling example of this from the British government. This blew my mind.
The tax form example.
Yes.
Yeah.
So they wanted to increase their tax collection rates. Initially, their process sent citizens to a web page where they had to download a form, fill it out, and send it back.
Which is a classic high-friction environment.
Yeah.
Every single step is a barrier.
Right. So they changed one thing. They gave people a direct link to the form itself.
Just removing the download step.
Exactly. Subtracting exactly one step. And simply by doing that, the tax collection rate jumped from 19.2% to 23.4%.
Wow.
That tiny removal of friction represented millions of pounds in additional tax revenue. Millions. Just from removing a click.
And the psychology behind why that one click matters is so crucial. It's about the cognitive toll of task switching.
Task switching, yeah.
When you ask someone to download a file, you're forcing them to break their flow state.
Hmm.
They have to open a new window, navigate to a downloads folder, open the document, and then, remember what they were trying to achieve in the first place.
It's exhausting just thinking about it.
Every micro step requires a fresh burst of willpower just to overcome the inertia.
Okay, so it's easy to see how removing a single click works for a massive government website or how redesigning a factory floor boosts production. But how does that translate to the microscopic decisions you make when you're just, exhausted at 8 p.m. on a Tuesday?
Well, that brings us right into the living room. How do we take addition by subtraction and apply it to our personal habits? We do it through a strategy known as priming the environment.
And the text introduces us to this IT developer named Oswald Knuckles. He uses a strategy he calls resetting the room.
Yeah, it involves incredibly mundane, highly specific action.
Very specific. Like when he finishes watching TV, he immediately places the remote back on the TV stand, fluffs the pillows, and folds the blanket.
And when he takes a shower, he uses the 30 seconds it takes for the water to warm up to wipe down the toilet and the mirror.
He calls this being proactively lazy. He organizes spaces for their intended purpose so that the next action is easy.
Right.
But I have to admit, when I first read this, it sounded entirely backward to me.
How so?
Wiping toilets and folding blankets doesn't sound lazy at all. It just sounds like doing tomorrow's chores today. Like, how is adding more work to your plate when you're supposed to be relaxing a form of laziness?
That reaction is completely natural. But it misses the deeper psychological shift happening here. We need to look at this through the lens of decision fatigue and environmental priming.
Okay.
When Knuckles resets the room, he isn't cleaning up after the last action. He is actively offloading future cognitive processing onto his physical environment.
Oh, I see. Outsourcing his willpower to the arrangement of his furniture.
That's a great way to phrase it. Think about the friction of starting a good habit. Say you want to read a book to wind down.
Okay.
But the room is a mess, the pillows are everywhere, and the book is, like, buried under a pile of mail.
The friction is incredibly high.
Exactly. Your brain calculates the energy required just to prepare to read, and it opts for scrolling on your phone instead.
Because the phone is right there. It's frictionless.
Right. By resetting the room, you're designing a world where the right choice becomes the path of least resistance tomorrow. You pay a tiny, almost imperceptible upfront cost in energy today to completely eliminate a massive behavioral obstacle later.
So it really is proactive laziness. You do a micro task now, so you can coast on easy street later.
Exactly.
And the source material offers several actionable variations of this. Like, if you want to improve your diet, don't wait until you're starving on a Wednesday night to figure out what to eat.
Right, because you'll just order pizza.
Exactly. Chop up a ton of fruits and vegetables on the weekend and put them in clear containers at eye level in the fridge.
So when you open the door, the healthy food is the path of least resistance, not the bag of chips hidden in the back of the pantry.
Yeah. Or if you want to exercise first thing in the morning, set out your workout clothes, your shoes, your keys, and your water bottle the night before.
You're making the good habit nearly inevitable by removing the need to make any decisions when you're tired and groggy.
If you want to draw or journal more, put your notebooks and pens right on top of your desk. Don't tuck them away in a drawer.
If you want to cook a healthy breakfast, put the skillet on the stove and the cooking spray on the counter before you go to bed.
You are shaping the physical space so that it literally pulls you toward the good habit.
You're unbending the hose before you even turn the water on.
I love that. Okay, so we've covered making good habits frictionless. But what about the other side of the coin?
The bad habit.
Yeah. Because right now, sitting on the couch and mindlessly scrolling on a phone for 3 hours is an incredibly frictionless activity. It requires zero energy.
And this is where we invert the principle.
Okay.
If the overarching goal is to make good habits effortless by removing friction, the strategy for bad habits is to make them impossible by intentionally adding friction back in.
The text gives a fantastic escalation of this idea regarding television consumption.
Oh yeah, this is great.
It says, if you find yourself watching too much TV, the first step is to add a little bit of friction. Just unplug the television after every single use.
And the rule is you can only plug it back in if you can say the name of the specific show you intend to watch out loud.
Right. That simple physical barrier forces you to move from an unconscious, automatic behavior, just collapsing on the couch and hitting a button, to a conscious, deliberate decision.
But if unplugging it isn't enough friction, it escalates.
It really does. It says you should take the batteries out of a remote after you watch TV and put them in a different room.
And if you're truly hardcore and want to break a severe binge-watching habit,
You should physically pick up the television and put it in a closet after every use.
yes,
So you only bring it out and set up when you really want to watch something. I have to laugh at the image of someone lugging a 55-inch flat-screen TV into a hallway coat closet every single night.
it's a funny image for sure.
It sounds completely absurd. Like, do you really need to go to such ridiculous extremes just to stop watching reruns?
Well, the absurdity is actually the entire point of the exercise.
Really?
Yeah. The goal is to introduce just enough physical and psychological friction to disrupt a mindless behavior loop. Habits operate on a loop.
Mm.
Cue, craving, response, reward. You sit on the couch, that's the cue. It triggers the routine instantly. It's an automatic reflex.
But if the TV is locked in a closet, that automatic loop just shatters.
Because suddenly, you have to expend a massive amount of physical and cognitive energy to fulfill the craving.
You have to literally haul a TV out of a closet.
Right. And because we know the human brain strictly follows the law of least effort, the moment the effort required to execute the bad habit heavily outweighs the craving for it, the habit dies.
It's just not worth the calories.
Exactly. You don't have to lock your TV away forever. You just have to make the process annoying enough that your biologically lazy brain says, you know what? It's not worth the calories. I'll just read the book that's sitting right here on the table.
So it's addition by subtraction for the good habits and subtraction by addition for the bad ones.
Add steps. Add annoyance.
We can apply this easily to our phones, too. Like if you spend too much time on social media, delete the apps from your phone every evening.
Yes, that's a perfect example.
If you want to check them the next day, you have to go to the App Store, re-download them, wait for them to install, and type in your password.
And that tiny bit of friction, that 1 minute of waiting, is often more than enough to break the spell and make you put the phone down.
It completely reframes the dynamic of behavior change. I mean, we spend so much of our lives beating ourselves up, convinced we're flawed because we lack the willpower to stick to our goals.
But the data and the biology show that we're simply operating in environments that are perfectly engineered to make bad habits easy and good habits incredibly difficult.
So let's distill this down to the core takeaway for you listening. The science here is deeply forgiving. You are biologically wired to take the easy way out. Your brain is a beautiful, energy-conserving machine.
So stop fighting it.
Stop trying to force water through a bent hose. Stop relying on sheer willpower to muscle your way through poorly designed environments.
You have to transition from being the victim of your environment to becoming the architect of it.
Architect of it, I love that. Unbend the hose, reset the room, prime your physical spaces so that your good habits become the undeniable path of least resistance.
And take those bad habits,
Yeah.
the ones that are currently way too easy to slip into, and throw some heavy metaphorical hurdles in front of them. Unplug the TV, delete the apps.
You don't need to fundamentally change who you are. You don't need to morph into a completely different, infinitely disciplined person overnight.
You just need to change the spaces where you live and work.
You aren't lazy. You are just highly optimized for an environment that isn't serving your goals yet.
Which leaves us with a really fascinating thought experiment to close on.
Oh, lay it on us.
I want you to look around the physical room you were sitting in right now. Just scan the objects, the layout, what's visible and what's hidden away. If an alien were to beam down and observe your space, knowing absolutely nothing about you or your goals, what habits would they assume you are trying to build, simply based on what is easiest to reach?
Wow. Does your living room scream, I am training to be a master guitarist? Or does it scream, I am optimized to eat snacks and binge watch television?
But let's take that one step further, into the space where we spend most of our time. Look at the digital room of your smartphone's home screen.
Oh, that's convicting.
If that same alien looked at your phone, what would they assume your life's purpose is? What is your digital environment aggressively pulling you toward right now?
Man, that is a question to sit with. We opened by talking about how we assume success is this grueling mountain we have to climb, requiring some epic cinematic struggle.
Right.
But maybe the real secret to getting up that mountain isn't training harder. Maybe it's just packing a lighter bag, finding a gentler slope, and making sure your walking shoes are sitting right by the front door. We'll see you on the next deep dive.